Hello, Pasangala. Vanakkam and welcome. Vedantu Learning Center now in Anna Nagar. There's a grand launch event that is going to happen this Sunday, that is February 4th from 10:30 a.m. onwards. So, இது எங்க வருதுன்னா குமாரன் நகர் A block, Anna Nagar East, Chennai, Tamil Nadu 60030 வருது. Please don't miss this launch. Okay, so என்னெல்லாம் plan பண்ணிருக்கோம் இந்த launchல na, you have a prize distribution ceremony, math marathon and board strategy for class 10, get Vedantu goodies, meet your favorite master teacher and also get free JEE and NEET counseling. Idha thavara, you have 2 exclusive reels and do not forget to bring your parents for this exclusive launch that is happening in Anna Nagar. Okay, guarantee is 100% assured or else we are going to refund your fees pasangla. So vaanga இன்னைக்கு செஷன் குள்ள போலாம். இன்னைக்கு நான் செஷன்ல ரொம்ப முக்கியமான டாபிக் தான் எடுக்க போறோம் பசங்களா. Ecosystem. Okay, what is ecosystem is what we are going to understand. It's a very easy chapter that comes in your class 12. Okay, it comes under the unit ecology. So organisms and population முடிச்சிட்டோம். இப்போ நம்ம ecosystem குள்ள போகலாம். So ecosystem la நீங்க என்னெல்லாம் இருக்கு பசங்களா உங்களுக்கு படிக்கிறதுக்கு. So you have ecosystem structure and functions. Okay, then you have productivity ரொம்ப முக்கியம். Then you have decomposition, energy flow and energy pyramid. So you don't have successions, you don't have nutrient cycling. That has been deleted from your 2024 NCERT textbook பசங்களா. So இவ்வளோ படிச்சா போதுமா மேம்? கண்டிப்பா போதும். So இதுல ரொம்ப முக்கியமான விஷயம் என்னன்னா energy pyramids of productivity. இதுல இருந்து தான் நிறைய questions கேட்பாங்க. So வாங்க, without any further delay, let's get into the session. I want everyone to like, share, comment and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. So first, let's try to understand. இதுல வந்து ரொம்ப definitions தான் பசங்களா, ரொம்ப theory தான் இதுல பெருசா புரிஞ்சு படிக்கிறதுக்கு ஒண்ணுமே கிடையாது. Okay, and you have been dealing with this right from a very small standard, right? So this chapter is going to be a piece of cake for all of you. So what is ecosystem? It is a functional unit of nature where living organisms interact among themselves and also with the surrounding non-living things. Okay, so ecology படிச்சோம். What is ecology? It's the study of interaction between biotic and abiotic. Now what is ecosystem? It is the unit of your earth, okay, wherein there is an interaction between living and living and an interaction between living and non-living. So adhaan pasangala nama vandu ecosystem nu solrom. Okay, this system is too much big and complex to be studied at one time. We basically divide it into 2 categories. There are 2 kinds of ecosystem. One is your terrestrial ecosystem pasangala, another one is your aquatic ecosystem. Ma'am, terrestrial na enna ma'am? Forests, grassland, desert, they are all some examples for terrestrial ecosystem pasangla. Whereas pond, lake, wetland, river, estuary, ocean, seas, they are all example for aquatic ecosystem. Rombo important. Then you also have some man-made ecosystem. What is man-made? They are artificial ecosystems. Okay, example are crop field and aquarium. That is human being are developing an ecosystem. That is what is your crop field, aquarium, zoos kuda eduthikalam. Zoos are also made by man. Okay, so idla nama enna padichirkom? Ecosystem and its types. Okay, now we shall continue pasangla. Let's try to understand the various aspects of an ecosystem. ரொம்ப முக்கியமான விஷயம். ஒரு ecosystem நான் எதை பேஸ் பண்ணி கிளாசிஃபை பண்றேன், அது ரொம்ப முக்கியமான விஷயம் பசங்களா. I have productivity, decomposition, energy flow and nutrient cycling. This is a very important 3-mark question. Okay, the components of the ecosystem are these 4 things: productivity, decomposition, energy flow and nutrient cycling. So first, the vertical distribution of different species occupying different levels is called stratification. So they can ask you, define stratification. Say for example, trees occupy the top vertical strata. For ecosystem irukna, trees that they will occupy the topmost strata. Then you have shrubs. Okay, then you have the herbs and grasses, they occupy the bottom level. So modala or ecosystem la pathina trees da mela irukum, adukapra kutti shrubs irukum, adukapra kutti herbs irukum. So they form form the first strata, okay, these form the second strata, and these forms the bottom layer. So இததான் நம்ம வந்து stratification ன்னு சொல்றோம் பசங்களா. ரொம்ப ரொம்ப முக்கியமான விஷயம். இப்போ நம்ம இந்த லைவ்ல இந்த வீடியோல நம்ம என்னெல்லாம் பார்க்க போறோம்னா, we are going to discuss about productivity, decomposition and energy flow. Nutrient cycling has been deleted from your topic, okay? Yes. So let's get into productivity. ரொம்ப முக்கியமான விஷயம். ஒரு லைனும் போர்ட்டன்ட் question in your exam. What is productivity பசங்களா? It is the rate of biomass production. How much of biomass is produced, be it a plant, be it a food. What is the rate of biomass that is produced? That is what we call it as productivity பசங்களா. So இந்த productivity நம்ம எப்படி express பண்றோம், அதுவும் ரொம்ப ரொம்ப முக்கியம். Okay, gram to the power minus 2 per year. Okay, so it is gm to the power minus 2 and per year, or else it is also measured in terms of energy. At that time we use kilocalories. Kilocalorie to the power minus 2, year to the power minus 1. That is how we define productivity, and that is a unit of productivity. And for NEET exam, this unit is very 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 important pasangla. Okay, now let's move on to two types of productivity. One is the primary productivity, இன்னொன்று வந்து secondary productivity. What is this primary productivity pasangla? It is the productivity of the plants, of the producers. That is what we call it as primary productivity. They are divided into, okay, so simple ah சொல்லணும்னா, I will use a screen. So first you have productivity. Productivity is divided into two types. One is your primary productivity, other one is your secondary productivity. Now, this primary productivity is further divided into net primary productivity, gross primary productivity. Okay, so this is how they are classified pasangla. So in the NPP, GPP, primary productivity, secondary productivity, அதெல்லாம் படிக்கிறது ரொம்ப 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 முக்கியமான விஷயம். So let's quickly try to understand what is your gross primary productivity. Okay, it is the productivity of an ecosystem. It is the rate of production of organic matter during photosynthesis. What is this organic matter pasangla? It is your glucose, right? Glucose is later converted into starch. That is what they mean by organic matter during photosynthesis. A considerable amount of GPP is utilized by the plants in respiration. Okay, so in the plants ku sila energy தேவை, yes or no? So அது produce பண்ற foodல இருந்து அது கொஞ்சம் consume பண்ணும், right? So that is lost in the form of respiration, and that is what we call it as net primary productivity pasangla. So how do you define net primary productivity? It is gross primary productivity minus respiration. Rombo rombo mukyam. Okay, so GPP minus R is equal to NPP. This is very very important. NPP is the available biomass for the consumption of heterotrophs. இப்போ plants சாப்பிட்டு நம்மளுக்கு மிச்சம் எவ்வளோ இருக்கு, அதுதான் நெட்னு சொல்றோம், கரெக்டா? ஸோ செலவெல்லாம் போய் என் கையில எவ்வளோ காசு இருக்கு, that is what we call it as net, right? So the same thing here. Whatever is left after the consumption by the plants, the leftover is called as net primary productivity pasangla. Then you have secondary productivity. Very easy questions come from this pasangla. Then you have this. It is defined as the rate of formation of new organic matter by consumers. Okay, so this net primary productivity is consumed by consumers, correct? So consumers, we all thrive upon plants directly or indirectly, right? Now these plants produce a new organic matter. That is what we call it as secondary productivity pasangla. Rombo rombo முக்கியமான விஷயம், இத மற்றும் மறந்துடாதீங்க. This is quite important. Okay, so productivity ல ரெண்டு விதம், primary and secondary. Primary ல ரெண்டு விதம், NPP and GPP. Okay, then you have your secondary productivity. Yes, now this is what you have to understand. Okay, NPP is equal to GPP minus R. Okay, the annual net productivity of the whole biosphere, நம்ம whole biosphere ஓட annual net productivity எவ்வளவு தெரியுமா? 170 billion tons of organic matter. Okay, ஒரு வருஷத்துக்கு, okay, you have 170 billion tons of organic matter that are produced by their plants. Okay, of this, despite occupying about 70% of the surface, the productivity of the oceans are only 55 billion tons. Okay, in the 170 billion tons, okay, what is produced by the oceans? Because oceans also have plants, phytoplanktons, correct? They produce only 50 billion tons, though your earth is covered with 70% water. So, romba mukkiyamaana vishayam pasangla. So, we already discussed NPP is equal to GPP minus respiratory loss. Here R stands for respiratory loss. Okay, I hope this is very clear. This is all about productivity. You guys should remember. இப்போ நம்ம next பார்க்க போறது decomposition. What is decomposition பசங்களா? It's very easy. It is the breakdown of complex organic matter or complex organic matter na inorganic substances break down pandren. Okay, so what are those inorganic substances? Carbon dioxide, water, nutrients, and this process is called as decomposition. Okay, so what happens here pasangla? The organic matter of the plants, the dead plants and animals, okay, they will be broken down into carbon dioxide, water, and nutrients. Okay, this process is called as decomposition. Okay, and the dead remains, the dead remains is called as detritus. Okay, this is called as detritus pasangla. They can ask you define detritus. Dead plants such as leaves, bark, flowers, and dead remains of animals including fecal matter constitute your detritus, which is the raw material for decomposition. Idudha pasangla. On this detritus only all your decomposers. Who are decomposers? The organism which thrive upon this detritus. Thrive na live or depend upon the organic matter for their survival are called as decomposers. In the decomposers ki innoru peru irukku, we call them as detrivores. Okay, so detrivores or decomposers, the both of them mean the same. Some example of detrivores are bacteria. Okay, then you have fungi, then you have earthworm. Okay, these are all some of the examples of detrivore organism. Yes, is it clear? இப்போ இந்த decomposition base பண்ணி ஒரு முக்கியமான 5 mark question இருக்கு. Explain the important steps in decomposition. It's a very important 5 mark question pasangla. Romba mukkiyamaana question. Okay, so what are the 5 steps? Fragmentation, leaching, catabolism, humidification, mineralization. So idu eppadi ஞாபகம் வச்சுக்கலாம்? Fragmentation, leaching, catabolism, humidification, mineralization. FLCHM in ஞாபகம் வச்சுக்கலாம். So first let's start with the very first step, that is your fragmentation. So what is this fragmentation? பேர்லயே இருக்கு. Large organic matter will be broken down into smaller fragments. Correct? So detrivores, நான் already சொன்ன மாதிரி, organisms which thrive upon this detritus are called as detrivores. Okay, so they break down detritus into smaller particles. இப்போ பெரிய பார்ட்டிகலா இருக்கிறத இந்த மாதிரி பெரிய chunks இருக்கிறத குட்டி fragments மாத்துறது தான் உங்களோட fragmentation ஓட function. Okay, next you have leaching. What is leaching? What is actually happening பசங்களா? இந்த fragmentation நடக்கும்போது the water soluble inorganic nutrients go down into the horizon. இதான் soilனா வச்சுக்கோங்க. All the water soluble inorganic nutrients go down, they seep down and they get precipitated as unavailable salts. That is what we call it as leaching. Fragmentation நடக்கும்போது என்ன ஆகும் பசங்களா? All the water soluble inorganic nutrients, they will go deep inside the soil horizon and they are going to get precipitated as unavailable salts. That's very important பசங்களா. Next you have catabolism. What is catabolism பசங்களா? You know, in the soil there will be bacteria and fungi, right? And these enzymes will basically degrade the bacteria and fungi la sila enzymes irukum. They will basically break the detritus into simple or inorganic substances. That is what we call it as catabolism. So fragmentation la vandu you don't have an enzymatic action, whereas in catabolism you have an enzymatic action. Okay, the next one is humification. Very, very important. Okay, what is humification? It leads to the accumulation of a dark colored amorphous substance called humus. Tamil la sollona kalimannu solluvaanga, right? So that kaliman is nothing but your humus. Okay, it's a highly resistant to microbial action and undergoes decomposition at an extremely slow rate, and it is highly rich in minerals and nutrients. Okay, so the humus எவ்வளோ இருக்கோ அந்த அளவுக்கு அந்த சாயிலோட fertility அதிகமா இருக்குன்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. Define humus is again a very important question. They can ask you, dash is a dark colored amorphous substance, okay, which is resistant to microbial action in கேட்பாங்க. You need to be able to write it as humus. Okay, next you have the last one, that is mineralization. நான் சொன்னல இந்த humus வந்து ரொம்ப ஸ்லோவா தான் degrade ஆகும்னு. So when it undergoes degradation very slowly by some microbes, they release all the inorganic nutrients, okay, like calcium, phosphorus, silicon. They all release all these kind of nutrients into the soil. This process is called mineralization. Okay, this is the entire thing about decomposition: fragmentation, leaching, catabolism, humification and mineralization. Never forget these 3 steps. Okay, 5 steps. இது வந்து ஒரு ஆர்டரா ஞாபகம் வச்சுக்கோங்க. Yes, now we shall move on to some things that are given related to decomposition, which are very important. PYQs la nariya vaati ketirukanga. Decomposition is a largely oxygen requiring process. Okay, அப்படினா என்ன பசங்களா, what do you understand by that? This is an NCERT snip. Okay, so decomposition வந்து ஒரு aerobic process ன்னு சொல்றாங்க. அதுக்கு ஆக்சிஜன் தேவைப்படும்னு சொல்றாங்க. Okay, the rate of decomposition is controlled by chemical composition of detritus and climatic factors. How fast the decomposition takes place depends on the chemical composition of my detritus and also the climatic condition. In a particular climatic condition, decomposition rate is slower if detritus is rich in lignin and chitin. Okay, ரொம்ப முக்கியம். இந்த decomposition வந்து ரொம்ப ஸ்லோவா இருக்கும் when it has chitin and lignin. என்ன மேம் இது chitin and lignin பத்தி என்ன மேம் அவ்வளோ ஸ்பெஷலான விஷயம்? Both these chitin and lignin are very complex polysaccharides பசங்களா. அவங்கள உடைக்கிறதுக்கு ரொம்ப டைம் ஆகும், அவங்கள பிரேக் பண்றதுக்கு ரொம்ப டைம் ஆகும். Okay, yes, and quicker if the detritus is rich in nitrogen and water soluble substances like sugar. This can be a PYQ. Okay, when it is very slower, when it is made up of chitin and lignin. When it is faster, when it is rich in nitrogen and water soluble substances like sugar. ரொம்ப முக்கியம். Temperature and soil are the most important climatic factors that regulate decomposition. Okay, how do they regulate? Good the temperature, greater will be the growth of the microbes. Greater the growth of the microbes, greater will be the rate of decomposition. Correcta? அது ரொம்ப முக்கியமான விஷயம். Right? So what are they telling? Warm and moist environment favor decomposition. Okay, so decomposition aerobic இருக்கணும். Okay, the climate should be warm and it should be moist. Okay, so all these factors contribute, very important, they contribute to the rate of decomposition. Okay, so this is a very important part for both your NEET and your board exam pasangla. So by this we complete decomposition as well. Okay, so idu romba mukkiyam. Slower epo, faster epo. Yes, yeah. So next quickly we will be discussing about PYQs. அப்ப எனக்கு டக்குன்னு எல்லாருமே ஆன்சர் பண்ணணும். இப்போ நம்ம என்ன பார்க்க போறோம்னா energy flow, the third characteristic of an ecosystem. So what is this energy flow பசங்களா? ஒரு trophic levelல இருந்து இன்னொரு trophic levelக்கு, இல்ல producersல இருந்து consumersக்கு, primary consumerல இருந்து secondary consumerக்கு எப்படி energy transfer ஆகுது, அததான் நம்ம வந்து energy flowன்னு சொல்றோம். இந்த மொத்த அர்த்துக்கு, இந்த மொத்த பூமிக்கே யார் வந்து எனர்ஜி கொடுக்குறா பசங்களா? Who is the ultimate source of energy to the entire earth? It is your sun. So sun is the ultimate ultimate source of energy for all the ecosystems. That is very, very, very important. Okay, so sunல இருந்து வர சில ரேடியேஷன், எல்லா ரேடியேஷனுமே photosynthesis காஸ் பண்ணுமா மேம்? கிடையவே கிடையாது பசங்களா. There is less than 50% of its radiation is PAR, photosynthetically active radiation. So this line is an important PYQ பசங்களா. ஓகே, நம்ம அர்த்ல இருந்து, நம்ம சன்ல இருந்து நம்ம அர்த்துக்கு வர 100% ரேடியேஷன்ல 50% ரேடியேஷன் மட்டும் தான் பசங்களா photosynthetically active radiation. That means they fall in the nanometer of 400 to 700 nanometer. That is very, very important. Okay, so in the plants இதை என்ன பண்றாங்கன்னா, இந்த photosynthetically active radiation absorb பண்ணி they are converting the light energy into chemical energy. That is what we call it as autotrophs. Plants, photosynthetic bacteria, right? They basically fix your sun's radiant energy to make food from simple inorganic material. That's very, very important. And pasangla, remember, plants capture only 2 to 10%. இந்த 50% இருந்து plants வெறும் 2 இருந்து 10% of the PAR is very much enough to sustain the entire living world. Okay, இந்த உலகத்துக்கான எனர்ஜியே வெறும் 2 இருந்து 10% of the PAR is giving. Okay, so this seems to be confusing for many of you. Okay, so 100% energy வருதா நம்ம சன்ல இருந்து? இந்த 100% எனர்ஜி வேண்டாம், லைட்னு வச்சுக்கலாம். ஓகே, ஸோ இந்த 100% லைட்ல பசங்களா, 100% லைட்ல வெறும் 50% தான் it contains my desired wavelength, that is your 400 to 700 nanometer wavelength. ஓகே, இப்போ இந்த 50%ல என்னோட plants எவ்வளோ யூஸ் பண்ணுதுன்னா, my plants is using only 2 to 10% and preparing the food, preparing the energy that is needed for the whole of the earth. See how interesting it is. ஆமாவா இல்லையா பசங்களா? அவ்வளோ இன்ட்ரெஸ்டான விஷயம் இது. Yes. So, who is giving the energy? Plants. For plants, who is giving the energy? Sun. Okay, Suryan, right? He is the only source of energy for the entire earth, pasangla. Yeah. Now, let's move on to producers. So, who are these producers? The green plants in the ecosystem are called producers. In a terrestrial ecosystem, rombo mukkiyam, major producers are herbaceous and woody plants. Adhe mari aquatic ecosystem ku you basically have producers, right? So there you have many kinds of phytoplankton, algae and higher plants. All these also live inside water. So தண்ணிலயும் photosynthesis நடக்குது, தண்ணிலயும் producers இருக்காங்க பசங்களா. So they form the first trophic level. Okay, what is trophic level pasangla? The trophic level is the position of an organism in a food chain, right? So they are the producers. You know, the bottom of any kind of food chain. So that is why we call them as the first trophic level. Okay, now let's move on to consumers. Nariya points irka na romba easy ana point. Okay, yes. So what are consumers or who are consumers? All animals depend on plants directly or indirectly for their food needs. Na direct ஆவோ indirect ஆவோ, நான் vegetarian ன்னு சொன்னா கூட நான் direct or indirectly I am basically dependent, right? So if I'm completely carnivores, you can see lion is completely carnivores. You can't tell that is not dependent on plant, right? So this lion eats deer eats your plant, so it is directly or indirectly dependent, right? So நிறைய விதமான consumers இருக்காங்க. So first you have primary consumers. Okay, then you have secondary consumers, and finally you have tertiary consumers. Primary, secondary and tertiary consumers. Okay, so who will be the primary consumer? Herbivores. All your grazing animals, cow, buffalo, goat, okay, they are all your herbivores. Then you will have your secondary consumers, then you will have your tertiary consumers, or we call them as top carnivores. Okay, so obviously the primary consumer will be herbivores. Some herbivores are insects, birds, mammals in terrestrial ecosystem and mollusk in aquatic ecosystem. The consumers that feed on these herbivores are carnivores. okay, or primarily we call them as primary carnivores, okay. So though they are secondary consumer, we call them as primary carnivores, and then you have your secondary carnivores, okay. Yes. இப்போ முக்கியமான விஷயம் ஃபுட் செயின். நிறைய சின்ன வயசுலேருந்து படிச்சிருப்பீங்க, 5th 6th, சில பேர் 3rd கூட படிக்கிறீங்க, கரெக்டா? ஸோ வாட் இஸ் ஃபுட் செயின்? இட் இண்டிகேட்ஸ் த interdependence of organism on one another. How two organisms depend on each other is what we call it as food chain, okay. There are two kinds of food chain. One is your grazing food chain, other one is your detritus food chain, okay. So what is grazing food chain? Here the first trophic level is occupied by producers பசங்களா. so அததான் நம்ம வந்து grazing food chain ன்னு சொல்றோம். then what is detritus food chain? Here the first trophic level is occupied by detritus, okay. so ரொம்ப முக்கியம், important 3-mark question. what are food chain? what are its types? okay. so இந்த food chain வந்து ஏன் முக்கியம்னா, they help in maintaining the ecological balance of the environment, okay. so first let's talk about your grazing food chain, okay. you have your cabbage is eaten by caterpillar, and the caterpillar is eaten by a bird, right? Then you have a detritus food chain, okay. so you have detritus, which is a dead and decayed matter. It is consumed by an earthworm. Now the earthworm is consumed by another feeder, right? so this is what we call it as detritus food chain and grazing food chain பசங்களா. ரொம்ப முக்கியமான விஷயம். Now see here, listen to me very carefully. in aquatic ecosystem like lake, pond, ocean, sea, your grazing food chain is the major conduit for energy flow, okay. grazing உங்க aquatic ecosystem ல எது வந்து majority ஆன food chain? grazing food chain, okay. as against this, in a terrestrial ecosystem, a much larger fraction of energy flows through your detritus food chain. ரொம்ப முக்கியமான விஷயம் பசங்களா. so what are they telling? ரெண்டு விதமான ecosystem இருக்குல்ல, ஒன்னு வந்து aquatic, இன்னொன்னு வந்து terrestrial, okay. so in aquatic, who is giving the major energy? It is your grazing food chain, right? whereas in terrestrial, who is giving the major energy? It is your detritus food chain. Important MCQ type question in your exam, okay. நிறைய நேரம் இந்த detritus food chain இந்த grazing food chain interconnect ஆயிருக்கும், okay. அந்த interconnection தான் நம்ம food web ன்னு சொல்றோம், okay. so what is food web? many food chains interlinked with each other is what we call it as a food web பசங்களா, okay. so detritus food chain may be connected with the grazing food chain at some levels. some of the organism of detritus food chain are prey to the grazing food chain animals, and in a natural ecosystem, some animals like cockroach, crows are omnivores, okay. they eat both plants and animals. these natural interconnection is what we call it as food web பசங்களா. ரொம்ப முக்கியமான விஷயம். yes. Now let's talk about trophic level. What is trophic level? It is a position of an organism in a food chain is what we call it as trophic level, which I already discussed with you. Producers belong to the first trophic level, okay. then you have herbivores, then you have your primary consumer, secondary consumer, and the tertiary consumer, okay. what is the important point to note here pasangla? as we go from one trophic level to another trophic level, the energy decreases, okay. every இப்ப producersல வந்து energy அதிகமா இருக்கும், அதே வந்து consumersக்கு போனா the energy is decreasing. why? because most of the energy is lost in the form of heat, okay. so that is what we have your 10% law. I will talk to you about 10% law, okay. so here you can see the trophic level. First trophic level, you have plants, okay. so in aquatic ecosystem, you have phytoplankton. in terrestrial ecosystem, you have grass and trees, okay. in primary consumer, you have your second trophic level, which are usually a herbivore, okay. in aquatic ecosystem, you have zooplankton, okay. in terrestrial ecosystem, you have grasshopper and cow. Then you have your secondary consumer, they form your third trophic level or your carnivore, okay. you have your birds, fishes in your aquatic system, birds and wolf in your terrestrial system. Then you have your fourth trophic level, that is your top carnivore, you have your man and lion. Okay, so this is how each organism occupy a position in the food chain, and that position is what we call it as trophic level. Okay, yes. Now, this is a very important definition, standing crop. In a crop doesn't mean plant. Okay, remember that. Crop na in agricultural plant kadayadu. Okay, each trophic level has a certain mass of living material at a particular time. That is called a standing crop. Ipo or edathula, okay, maybe in Bangalore or in Chennai, what is the number of herbivores which are there? That will become the standing crop of that organism, of that trophic level. Okay, the standing crop is measured as the mass of living organism, that is biomass, or the number in a unit area. We either measure it in terms of mass, or we either measure it in terms of number. Okay, so the biomass of a species is expressed in terms of fresh or dry weight. Fresh weight means it includes water, dry weight means which does not include water. All these lines are possible potent questions in your exam, pasangla. Okay, now let's move on. The most important thing, the 10% law. What is this 10% law, pasangla? Can anyone tell me what is 10% law? It's very interesting to know that the energy, imagine this is your first trophic level. Let's take 3 trophic levels for now. Okay, so this is your producers. Producers, primary consumer, secondary consumer, and tertiary consumer. Okay, so what are they telling? Imagine if the producer is having 20,000 joules energy. Okay, producer க்கு எவ்வளவு எனர்ஜி இருக்கு? 20,000 ஜோல் எனர்ஜி இருக்கு. இப்போ இந்த கன்சியூமர் வந்து இந்த ப்ரொடியூசர் சாப்பிட்டா நேச்சுரலி அவங்களுக்கு அந்த 20,000 ஜோல் எனர்ஜி வரணும். பட் இட் இஸ் நாட் சோ பசங்களா. They just get 10% of the energy. So what is 10% of 20,000 pasagla? It is just 2,000 joules. Okay, so only the 10% is flowing. Okay, what is happening to the remaining 90%, ma'am? The remaining 90% is lost in the form of heat. Okay, if you get 2,000 na, then you will have the secondary consumer receiving only 10% of 2,000, which is 200 joules. Then I have my tertiary consumer, which will just receive 20 joules. Okay, so this is what we call it as 10% law. Only 10% of the energy is transferred to each trophic level from the lower trophic level. இதுதான் நம்ம 10% law ன்னு சொல்றோம். முக்கியமா நீங்க ஞாபகம் வச்சிருக்க வேண்டியது, அந்த மிச்ச 90% எனர்ஜிக்கு என்ன ஆகுது மேம்? இட் இஸ் லாஸ்ட் இன் த ஃபார்ம் ஆஃப் ஹீட் பசங்களா. ரொம்ப ரொம்ப முக்கியமான விஷயம். Okay, this is more common in your grazing food chain. Okay, because in grazing food chain the first trophic level is producers. Okay, can we continue pasangla? Shall we move on? Now this is what they have given. Okay, the energy is basically transferred from here, and every time it is lost in the form of heat. Okay, that's very very important for all of us to understand. Ipo we are moving on to the most important part. Majority questions come from ecological pyramids. Okay, so what is ecological pyramid? Pyramid na ellarku theriyum, indha mari or triangular structure, 3 dimensional. நம்ம 3 dimensional la varaiya mudiyadhu, so we are drawing it in 2D. Okay, it is a graphical representation of a food chain, is called as an ecological pyramid. So there are 3 kinds of pyramid: pyramid of number, pyramid of biomass, and pyramid of energy. What do you mean by pyramid of number? In the pyramid of number enna kurikkona, it is the number of organism in each trophic level. எவ்வளோ organism இருக்கு ஒரு trophic level ன்றதா இந்த pyramid of number indicate பண்ணும். Next you have pyramid of biomass. What is the mass in each trophic level? That is what it is going to indicate. Okay, energy absolutely very very clear. இப்பதான் பார்த்தோம் energy in each trophic level. Energy in each trophic level. Examples are so damn important pasangla. So first let's start with pyramid of numbers. Okay, yes, so we have the first pyramid of numbers. So this pyramid of number in grassland ecosystem, ஒன்னு மட்டும் ரொம்ப தெளிவா புரிஞ்சுக்கோங்க பசங்களா. Pyramids can be of 2 types. Okay, one is upright, another one is inverted. Okay, இன்னொன்னு என்ன பசங்களா? inverted. Upright na enna pasangla? The base is more broad, right? Inverted na mela irundhu ipdi keela. Okay, upright and inverted. So remember, the pyramid of number in a grassland ecosystem is an upright pyramid. Mela irukku indha mari irukku, correct? You see this? It looks something like this. Okay, why is this upright? Because here the number of producers are high. Producers oda number vandu romba romba adhigama irukku. That is why we call this as a upright pyramid. Okay, then you have your primary consumer whose number is little more less. Then you have your secondary consumer. Tertiary consumer pathina romba romba kammi. ஒரு ஃபாரஸ்ட்ல மிஞ்சி போனா ஒரு 10 லைன் இருக்குமா டாப் கார்னிவர், 100 லைன் இருக்கெல்லாம் சான்ஸ் கிடையாது. மிஞ்சி போனா ஒரு 25 இருக்கும். ஆனா எவ்வளோ பிளான்ஸ் இருக்கு. Plants are always high, right? So pyramid of numbers, this is an example for upright pyramid of numbers, that is your grassland ecosystem. Okay, there is one more example pasangla, pyramid of biomass. Okay, so pyramid of biomass can be mass na enna, it is something related to weight, correct? So idhiliyo upright pyramid nu onnu irukku. Okay, and you also have an inverted pyramid. So this is upright and this is inverted. So romba romba mukkiyama nabu vechukonga. So what is this upright pyramid? Biomass, weight. Okay, so it is an example grassland ecosystem. You can take an example of grassland. So in the forest la irukka motta plants oda weight da adhigama irukum when compared to that of the organisms, herbivores, carnivores, top carnivores. Okay, so this is what we call it as a pyramid of biomass which is upright. Then you have an inverted pyramid. Ma'am, inverted ah irukuma? Irukum pasangla, especially in aquatic ecosystem. Rombo rombo mukkiyamaana vishayam. Okay, inverted pyramid of biomass, where do you see? You see it in an aquatic ecosystem. In aquatic ecosystem, what is happening pasangla? Plants vandu rombo rombo kammi, correct? The producers are very less. The mass of the producers is very less when compared to that of your primary consumer. Okay, so an example of inverted pyramid of biomass is your aquatic ecosystem. So what are they telling? They have a small standing crop of phytoplankton and a large standing crop of zooplankton. So zooplanktons, the primary consumers, they are very much high in number. Okay, and your phytoplanktons, these are your phytoplanktons which are less in number. Okay, romba romba clear ah purinjukonga. Idha ungala pyramid of biomass. Okay, so next you have pyramid of energy. தெளிவா சொல்றேன் பசங்களா, pyramid of energy can never ever be inverted. Okay, it is always தூக்கத்துல இருந்து எழுப்பி கேட்டாலும் எல்லாரும் சொல்லணும் always upright. ஏன் கேட்பாங்க? Why is pyramid of energy always upright? Because pasangla, there is a 10% law. Okay, there is only 10% of energy that goes from one trophic level to another trophic level. இங்க பாருங்க, 10,000 joules ல இருந்து 1000 joules ஆகுது, 1000 joules ல இருந்து 100 joules ஆகுது, 100 joules ல இருந்து 10 joules ஆகுது. You can see that 90% is lost. So energy is decreasing in every trophic level. It is always upright because energy decreases at each trophic level. You write this, you get 2 marks pasangla. இது ஒன்னு தெரிஞ்சா போதும், ஈஸியா உங்களுக்கு 2 மார்க் வந்துரும். ஓகே, இங்க பாருங்க, 1,00,000 ஜோல் சன்லைட்ல இருந்து வெறும் 10,000 ஜோல் தான் எடுக்கப்படுது. 10% தான் உங்க பிளான்ஸை கன்சியூம் பண்ணுது. ஓகே, இந்த 10%ல இருந்து you can see what is happening. 1,00,000 இல்ல, 10,00,000. Okay, 10,000 joules of sunlight, from there you are taking 10,000 joules. Okay, புரிஞ்சதா பசங்களா? 10 lakh joule ல இருந்து 10,000 joule, from there it just goes. This is very very important. Okay, important points. Portable questions come from this 2 points. In all ecosystem, all the pyramids of number of energy and biomass are upright. Okay, எல்லாத்துலயுமே. Producers, producers are more in number and biomass, then the herbivores, and herbivores are more in number, then the carnivores, okay. Also, energy at a lower trophic level is always more than that of the higher trophic level. இங்க பாருங்க, இது வந்து lower trophic level. Lower trophic level 10,000 joule இருக்கு. Okay, அப்படியே அந்த energy வந்து கம்மியாயிட்டே போகுது. So the energy at the lower trophic level is more. That is why it is always upright பசங்களா. ரொம்ப clear-ஆ அந்த ஒரு விஷயத்தை புரிஞ்சுக்கோங்க. There are exceptions to this generalization. If you were to count the number of insects feeding on a big tree, okay, ஒரு tree இருக்கு, you have a tree, so tree will form the base, ஒரே ஒரு tree தான் இருக்கு, so tree வந்து base form ஆகுது, okay. Then you have so many insects on that tree, okay, and to eat that insects I have so many birds. So what kind of pyramid do you call this as? You call this as an inverted pyramid, right? இதை நம்ம என்னன்னு சொல்றோம்? Inverted pyramid of numbers, because here I am counting the number of organisms. Okay, so this is a very important example. Tree ecosystem, or a tree or ecosystem da solla pona, yes or no? Yeah, inverted, upright are very important. Yes, so is this clear pasangla? Any doubts here? Yeah, the most important thing, நிறைய வாட்டி PYQs கேட்டிருக்காங்க, pyramid of energy is always upright, can never be inverted, because when energy flows from a trophic level to the next trophic level, some energy is always lost as heat at each step. Each bar in the energy pyramid indicates the amount of energy present at each trophic level in a given time or annually per unit area. So, இது ஈஸியா ஞாபகம் வச்சுக்கணும்னா, we'll just do one thing, okay? Pyramid, energy, biomass, number. Okay, இங்க வந்து upright, inverted. Okay, pyramid of energy can never be inverted. It is always upright. Okay, now pyramid of energy for upright, biomass க்கு வந்து grassland. Okay, இதுக்கு வந்து pond or aquatic ecosystem. Okay, for number you again have grassland எடுத்துக்கலாம், confusion வேண்டாம். For this it is tree ecosystem. You remember this? It's very easy to solve all the questions that comes up in this part pasangla. So this is all you have pasangla in your NCERT. Okay, that is from your exam point of view. இப்போ ரொம்ப முக்கியமா நான் கான்சென்ட்ரேட் பண்ண வேண்டியது ரெண்டு விஷயம் தான். ஒன்னு வந்து productivity, one second. So ஒன்னு வந்து productivity, okay, and the other thing that you guys need to concentrate is on pyramids, energy pyramids, ecological pyramids, especially your energy pyramid. Okay, so that's about ecosystem, one shot for you. So exam rush la edella ரொம்ப முக்கியமோ அதெல்லாம் கவர் பண்ணிருக்கேன். If you guys have any doubts, please do let me know in the chat section. Thank you for staying with me. Do stay tuned for more bio learning. Thank you so much.